committee going.
I
Yeah.
was going to say the same thing.
All right.
We're all thinking it. Okay.
All right. So roll call. Alder Dorf,
Here.
Alder Corpus Dax.
Here.
Are you going to turn up the heat in your house?
I just did.
No. Just looking
I'm in
at
the
you all
basement.
bundled up. I'm upstairs. I had to turn the heat on up here.
And I just
right.
turned my
Watch it
heat
when you
on
turned
up
it
here
up.
too. Wow.
All right. So I'll look for an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll entertain a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously. On to regular business. Consideration with possible action on the request to fill the following replacement positions and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers. We'll take A first, Captain for the Green Bay Police Department. Does anyone have any questions for staff?
I
If
do
not, I'll
not.
entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and item 1A has been passed unanimously. And then item 1B, electrical inspector. Does anyone have any questions? And if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Your turn, Alder Corpus Dax.
Oh, motion to approve. I do not have any
Second.
questions.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and that passes unanimously for 1B.
Thank you, Alders.
All right.
Consideration with possible action to repeal and recreate the Green Bay Municipal Code 2-79 and 2-81 to include indefinite terms for appointed officials and common council removal for cause in accordance with Wisconsin statutes. Staff?
I'm not sure if we want to have a discussion tonight on this. I know there were some questions last week at Common Council. To move this forward for the ordinance to be put on the Common Council agenda, I think we'd have a motion to approve. But if you have any questions about the removal for cause based on a 3/4 vote or majority vote, we can answer that tonight, or we could answer that next week.
Well, as I understand it, Joe, the 3/4 is set by the state. There's not much we can do about that, or is there anything we can do about it?
Attorney Mather, do you want to jump in?
Sure. So because of the way that our system is set up, where the mayor is the appointing entity and council is approving, the only way for council to remove is for cause, and the statute mandates that when council is removing for cause, it has to be the 3/4 vote. So there isn't anything that council can do to lower that threshold. Theoretically, you may be able to make it a higher threshold, like 5/6 or something, if you really wanted to. But I don't know that we would recommend doing that.
Okay. Just a couple of quick questions, and I'm not trying to stir the pot here, but I have been seeing some comments on social media, and it just kind of stirs the thought process. If we wanted to get away from the 3/4 vote, then, if I'm understanding you correctly, we would have to change the way these people are hired, in that the mayor appoints them. We'd have to change it so that the mayor does not appoint them anymore, that they're hired in some other way, and then we could get away from the 3/4.
So if council were the appointing body, then you could set your own threshold for what type of percentage vote would be needed to remove somebody. Because if council is appointing, then council can remove the official at will. But currently, all of our ordinances, everything is set up so that the mayor, or in some cases, different directors, for example, community and economic development director appoints, like the zoning, I can't think of it's right in front of me. Hold on. Zoning administrator, and the chief building official. So it's not always the mayor. Occasionally it is other individuals that are doing the appointing. But yes, the short answer is you would have to completely rework the entire way that appointments happen within the city. And I haven't really looked into whether we can even do that, let alone what it would take to do that.
Okay. And then
But I can, if that's something that.
No. I'm just I just want to make sure I understand this thing. I mean, it seemed pretty simple when we started out. It kind of got a little convoluted and complicated. And again, it's good people like you keeping us on the tight and narrow and not just ad-libbing as we go. But the mayor can remove without due process.
Yes, the state statutes allow for removal at pleasure of the person or entity that appoints the official. So if it's the mayor that's doing the appointing, the mayor can remove an individual at will or at his or her pleasure without having to give a reason.
Okay, and not just once every 2 years, but tomorrow, a week later.
Tomorrow, and then the next person the day after, and there's no minimum requirement or anything like that.
All right, thank you very much. Alder Dorf?
First, he had his hand up first.
Alder
Oh,
Schwartz?
that's fine. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions. For Attorney Mather, did you do any research on other communities that have this ordinance in place? Is this kind of the standard operating procedure for a lot of other municipalities, an ordinance to this point?
Sure. So municipalities that have the setup with a mayor and a council, they all do appointments this way, where the mayor is the appointing entity and council approves. And in those situations, council can only, in those other communities, council can only remove for cause. In some of the communities where they may have like a village administrator or a city administrator, or some other type of setup that's not with a mayor, they may have the council actually be the entity that's doing the appointing, in which case they do have different looking ordinances simply because they have a different appointment mechanism. But that's because, again, it's a different form of government.
Okay. I'm having trouble with my video here. I think one of the things that happened at council, there was some pushback, it seemed, because it seems like every 2 years, we have the opportunity to approve department heads and such. And I think Alder Galvin brought up a good point, saying that, if you got to go through this every 2 years, that's kind of an issue, could be a problem. So I don't know how much we really need to delve into this. But I think there was some pushback for that, that every 2 years these folks have to go through the process, so to speak. And I don't know if this ordinance addresses that or if there's another way to look at it. Anybody can answer that one.
Director Falls?
Yeah, there was a memo. It wasn't included in the last personnel packet, and I'll include it for the Common Council agenda, that with all the municipalities that we were compared to when we looked at wages or things like that around the similar size municipality, we were the only municipality that did not have an indefinite term for directors. So, and we also have a 2-year term, and I cannot really find another municipality that has a 2-year term limit for directors. For the most part, the practice and general trend has been moving towards an indefinite term limit because there's removal at will or at pleasure for the mayor.
Okay, that sort of makes sense, but we do this process every 2 years, and generally speaking, it's worked pretty well, but there are times where we kind of get bogged down with it, and I'm just trying to see how much easier we can make this. So that's something we need to look at. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Alder Dorf?
And I'm sure we'll talk about this at council, but I am definitely opposed to blindsiding department heads every 2 years. And that actually happened at the last time. There was one person we talked about in closed session, and then when we came out of closed session and Alder proposed eliminating another person that we never even discussed. I also agree with what Alder Stroyer said. It's really going to be hard to find people. It is hard to find people who want to have their job to be at risk every 2 years because perhaps a couple of alders don't like them or don't like a decision that they might have made, and then they convince other people to just eliminate them for no reason. It's not fair. It's not American. Due process is the way we need to be doing these things. So at this point, I'd like to make a motion to approve this and to move it forward to council.
I'll second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Let's see. Now we're down to informational. Due to the impact of COVID-19 and the Omicron variant, the city is exploring the option of providing paid sick leave for employees retroactive to January 1 of 2022. A proposal will be brought forth at the next personnel meeting on February 8th, 2022. Director Falls, I just have a few questions.
Yeah,
I think
sure.
you know kind of how I feel about this. One, where is the city looking getting the money from? Or
So at this point, oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Okay, so where the funding would come from, essentially it's unfunded in the sense of it's more of loss of productivity for sick leave. And I think Director Ellenbecker could answer this a little bit better than I could. So there's really no funding for this sick leave. But then again, the cost usually occurs either, I think, trying to think for like budgeting purposes, it might affect the budget that way. And Diana can explain that much better. But usually the cost comes from down the line if someone doesn't use their sick leave and then is able to put it in their escrow account. So I don't know, Director Ellenbecker, do you want to answer that question and clarify anymore?
Right, Joe, you were definitely getting to it. It was just, it is not a physical, we don't have to come up with extra money in 2022 here to pay this additional 5 days. What it does is if somebody is using it, they don't have to use their sick time, which means it's not draining their sick leave balance. And then again, if and when they were to leave and if they were able to convert their sick leave, those extra 5 days that now they didn't have to use, that could turn into dollars for them to, let's say, to be able to put toward a sick escrow, or, maybe next year and the year after, they have more days to take for sick leave. So as Joe said, it's really immediately it's lack of production. All of a sudden you have somebody not in the office for 5 days because of this, and they're not forced to use their sick leave. It could be a financial cost if and when they were to retire fully with the city of Green Bay, and we would have to pay that out in an escrow account.
Alder Dorf?
If employees have COVID, are they allowed to come to work?
Sorry, what was that?
If an employee tests positive for COVID, is he or she allowed to come to work?
They should not be coming to work, no.
Right.
That could be working from home.
Right. But
Yeah, they
that's
could be
my
working from home,
point.
yes. Yeah.
They could be working from home. The Green Bay Area Public School District has a very strict protocol. So if you test positive for COVID, you have to prove that, to get that in certain places that they can take the test, to prove that you tested positive. And then you are required to not come in. Of course, you're in front of children and other staff, but we shouldn't be infecting other employees, like police officers should not be infecting other police officers at work. So they're required to not come in. And therefore, they have extended additional sick leave to the employees, the staff, the faculty, the administration, the custodians, to cover COVID. And we maybe, as part of this, would we require proof? Now, here's the problem with proof. My husband just got over COVID. We tried to get in for tests. We could not. We got the home test, which I was negative. He was positive, but Green Bay Schools doesn't accept the home test. You have to go through a clinic. Well, the earliest, he was 8 days into COVID before he could get into a clinic, and that's what's happening to a lot of us. So you can't necessarily require that proof unless we have a way to test, right? Like the Green Bay Schools have a way to test right in their schools, and that's how they get their proof. So are there strings attached, or can someone just say, I have COVID, I'm out you need to pay me for these 5 days? Where's the balance there?
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a lot of good points. So we do have COVID guidelines that were updated when the CDC updated their guidelines, and I can send that to the Common Council. It might have been sent in a group, everyone email. But when it comes to this policy that we'll be bringing forward at the next personnel meeting, there will be some approvals and I guess guidelines to approve someone for the sick leave. So we're going to be pretty liberal with proving the positive test because of what you said, because either you can't get into the hospitals,
Right.
you might have to use an at-home test, or when you test positive, most of the time hospitals won't even retest you for a negative because you might be positive after that. So once we get a positive result, either at home or through the hospital or rapid test, something like that, we'll accept that as a positive test. And then they would qualify for the 5 days of sick leave. But like what Director Ellenbecker was getting at with when he worked from home, the 5 days of sick leave would only apply to someone who is maybe asymptomatic, is able to work, and able to work remotely. So for employees who maybe cannot work remotely, this sick leave would be beneficial to them. There's also been some virtual learning and daycare closing for individuals with kids. So we don't have any type of leave other than personal or vacation that they have to use for those situations. So if someone has to be at home and help their kid learn or virtual learn, we would allow sick leave in this situation to be used for those circumstances.
I'm not sure what Green Bay school teachers do because they can't be. They're teaching from class. I'm using that as an analogy. I know, but if their child had to stay home, I mean, they wouldn't be covered. That's very generous. That would be very generous of us. We did that earlier in COVID. I'm definitely agreeing with the 5 days of the sick leave, and boy, yeah, because they could use people have vacation, but I would be open to that. So I'll just stop talking now.
Yeah, and I think Alder Galvin have more questions, or maybe Alder Gerlach, but that's why we want to put on your radar to think about it, and the proposal will be brought in 2 weeks.
Okay, Alder Gerlach?
I just don't understand this, and I thought maybe Alder Galvin, you could explain it to me very simply. What is the change that is being proposed here? It sounds like you're telling me that if you have a positive COVID test, you don't get paid sick leave?
No. What happens now, or what happened when it first started, when this whole COVID thing started, we had federal monies to cover the costs of employees being off sick for COVID.
Okay.
Those monies went away, and the city picked up the tab for a while, and then it stopped picking up the tab, and they said, hey, if you've got COVID, you've got sick time, vacation time, you've got personal time, use that. Now we're saying going back, and I guess we're going to retroactively from when we stopped doing that up until January 1st of this year. Joe, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're going to kind of reimburse those people their sick time or vacation time or whatever they use. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll try and clarify it. So what we're looking to do is, at one point you explained it exactly correctly. At one point we stopped providing the sick leave or the paid sick leave for employees. And the reason for that was based upon the vaccines are available and people are able to get vaccinated. At this time, in the past month, we've had plenty of people, whether they're vaccinated or not, and we've had some kind of different, science, whatever you want to call it, about if you're vaccinated, if you can still get Omicron. And a lot of it is, even though you're vaccinated, people are still testing positive and they still have to be out. So kind of the reason for the additional sick leave is based upon the vaccines. People are still being sick and have to stay home, or schools are still closing, they have to be home for that. So that's part of the reason why we're maybe going back to offering 5 paid sick leaves. So Alder Gerlach, if I can make this a little bit more clear, we're looking for starting January 1st of 2022, going forward, 5 paid sick leave days for individuals who test positive. Between last year and maybe up until now, you had to use your own sick leave. Whereas this going forward from January 1st going forward would be an additional bank of 5 days of sick leave for COVID purposes only. So we won't be reimbursing Alder Galvin back to last year. It'll start January 1 and go forward.
Okay, now I understand it. Now I'd like to hear what Alder Galvin thinks about it.
I guess my concern, Joe, is, and we know that there were people that took advantage of the federal sick leave monies who were not infected on the job. They were infected off the job. And I guess I'm, maybe it's the cop in me, but I'm thinking, how many employees do we have? How many times have they been sick with COVID? I mean, I've got a family member that's had it twice now. But, I want to make sure we're not being taken advantage of. I mean, the city has very good benefits, sick, vacation, personal time. And I just want to make sure we're not being taken advantage of within this, this because of what's going on. But I do understand even if you're vaccinated, you can still get sick. And as Alder Dorf is saying, it seems like it's very difficult to get in and get testing to verify that. And again, with daycare or schools closing, we've been seeing that in the news, that happens, and that is going, where they may have to be home to make sure their kids aren't burning the house down while they're gone. So I guess I'm looking if you could have some data when you bring forth this proposal. Out of the roughly, what do we have? Roughly 800 and some employees in the city. What are we looking at statistically? Even from the beginning of this whole COVID nightmare.
Yeah. So what we're going to try to bring is a type of people that have been out on COVID for the past month or so to kind of give us some data, because that's where the COVID leave is going to go back. But we can try and run numbers also of last year. But I know last year was kind of difficult because when we stopped providing the federal leave or the funds to pay for the sick leave, we kind of stopped tracking because we didn't have to get reimbursed for the funds for it. So we'll try and look at what we have for 2020 and 2021 to get maybe a yearly data of it, and then also how we've been impacted the past month and a half by it.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else have any other questions or concerns moving forward so that when we have this meeting in 2 weeks, if you have a concern right now or something you'd like HR to look into when they bring that proposal forward so that we can move on this thing, so it doesn't get bogged down, so to speak. All right.
I guess one last thing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. When is the next council meeting? Isn't it?
Next week.
February 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yes. And then it's the 16th. Okay. Thanks. Thank you, Alder Sawyer.
And I think one other thing to point out is, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think we've had quite a few new hires in the past year or so that they don't have the sick leave banks built up that many of our veteran employees have, or longer tenure employees. And I think we also have quite a few employees that are in the field that cannot work remotely. So we're trying to help those employees that cannot work remotely if they do test positive and have to stay at home.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll discuss more and bring more data
Sure.
on the meeting.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Is this informational or just receive?
I'm sorry, it's informational. Duh. All right, I won't entertain a motion. Does anyone have any questions about the report of routine personal actions for regular employees? All right. Our next meeting date is February 8th. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
anyone that wants to stick around longer say nay. All right, that passes unanimously. We'll see you again in what, about
4 minutes, like 5 o'clock, about 5 o'clock.
Right. Very
Okay.
good.
See ya.